in this document here, we're talking about a couple of 3 dozen of different approaches, but they're not just for the same mission. They're for different types of vehicles for different missions. And so you have this thing where you're going to build it here. The vehicle is going to be real heavy, and it's going to have to take the lift-off loads, okay, and the gravitational loads.
Right.
And so immediately say, we'll assemble it on the moon.
How long has that, Bill, how long has that moon assembly mode been in? Are they using it now?
What's going on now, I can't say, okay? But I can say that on Mars, yes, the moon is a different problem. Now, let me try to explain it.
Now, this is interesting. Now, I don't want to push you where you don't want to go, or you can't go, so don't get that in mind. But you've just made 2 remarkable statements. Mars and the moon are 2 entirely different things. All right.
Okay. Now, first of all, something is wrong with the moon, because unlike anything else that our astronomers that have been able to find, it doesn't rotate. Okay? So, So, first of all, it's not a moon. And it's not a planet. It's not a planet. It's a vehicle. And it's a command center for a sizable number of different extraterrestrial civilizations. So when you land on the moon, yes, you get the finger and they tell you to leave because it's no trespassing. So you don't get to go inside the moon and down into all these facilities with all these people working. And your moon, of course, isn't your moon either. It's their moon. And it's not a moon. It's a command center. And it's orientated at your planet purposely. Otherwise, it would just, if it was a planet, it would rotate. The interesting thing about what we just said is that there are numbers. In fact, someplace in this document that we're looking at, we talk about other stars' moons. That particular star has planets, and those planets have moons. Some of those moons don't rotate either.
Oh.
Wow. What did you just say? They're just like your moon, which isn't your moon. It's parked there. And it's a command center for a region in the outer part of one of the arms of the Milky Way galaxy.
How interesting.
And so this facility, we didn't go underground. We were allowed to go take pictures, pick up the rocks, drive around. We got the vehicle there, and we drove around, and we went to a number of different areas, and we were told, you can do 2 or 3 after the first, and then you're to leave. So that's what we did, and we never went back.
We certainly did, yeah.
And so you got to ask the question, why didn't we go back to explore the moon? Oh, my gosh. Okay, and what's this thing you said that the moon doesn't rotate? Oh, my gosh. What are we saying here? Everything rotates. Any astronomer will tell you they all rotate. Well, maybe that's not quite right either, because we've found other stars close to us with planets that have moons that don't turn. Wow. Is somebody living on that planet too? Are they reptilians? Are they grays? Are they human? Oh my gosh. What are we talking about here? What I'm trying to say is the public does not understand what has taken place and what's happening. They don't have a feel for reality because it's been kept from them. You're not allowed to know. And okay, I'll admit, inside the secret think tank were compartments. And you may not even know any of the people in there. one of the things that was handled was if there was going to be lunch on board in the facility, it would be 4 or 5 lunch periods. If you went out, you were not encouraged to associate with other people in other parts of a secret think tank, which is the same as TRW later. Incidentally, TRW, Ramo Wooldridge, they were, I didn't say this before, but they were not in the Douglas secret think tank, but they were both advisors. So here we have who started and who ran the largest space think tank on the planet, TRW system. Okay? That's the level of the secret think tank. And so those advisors who are working on ballistic missile systems too,
right,
were the people that put together Thompson, Ramo, Wooldridge on Space Park, Redondo Beach. Okay? So, as I've said before, TRW had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laboratories, major labs and subsystem labs. And you don't really have departments. You got laboratories. But here we are back in the secret think tank again, and now we're reviewing a document that came out of the secret think tank in the 50s. And we're reading about people all over the place, Germany, you name it, studying some sort of propulsion. What's this hang up with trying to make a rocket? Where do they come from? Why are you people doing all of this? What's going on? So what you have in this document is both the people that are working on programs that some of them may have nothing to do with what you've read here, okay? Others, they wrote it. They submitted that data, and it went in, and Elmer Wheaton threw holy water on it, okay? So you have people in the tank that are flying to every place on the planet where Admiral Riccobata's guy delivered proposals, packages to, okay? And here we are now 10 years later, and I'm working inside the secret think tank, and we got all these guys on all the different programs, different methods. You got dozens and dozens and dozens of proposals here. And yes, a lot of it is nuclear, and a lot of it, some of it was for liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, liquid rocket engine propulsion. But nobody was even addressing that. That was just stuff that was left over. But the document then was put together from all of these different people in the tank doing their studies. And they're getting information from all of the top people around the planet, around the country, who had gotten a package 10 years earlier.
So you saw the result of your courier efforts with all this amazing data down the road, how it just grew and grew and grew. This must have been fascinating to see.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because then later on, there's more of this stuff going on, orders of magnitude more over at TRW Systems in Redondo Beach. And that came, the people from the tank, some of them, we said, went to the RAND Corporation, but many of them later went to TRW and became lab directors at TRW. So this information, and some of the fellows went to Lockheed. Some of them went to the Skunk Works in Lockheed. In fact, the vice president of engineering went over there.
Well, you seeded the whole thing. That's pretty amazing. So let me do this. We got about 20 minutes left. Let's pull in some more of the ET UFO angles into this whole program. And we've talked about the Nordics and the secretaries at Douglas. Did you ever have contact? Now, your book is called Selected by Extraterrestrials. Did you have contact back in those days with anything off-planet that you knew about at the time directly? Were you a contactee? Let me put it that way, just in the traditional sense of the term.
Okay.
Now, this is for people who weren't listening to us long ago, because we've talked about this in the past, but I want to make sure that we revisit it, right? I think it's important.
Okay. I told you before what Elmer Wheaton would say in a conference, in one of the meetings on a subject, and where I would step in and pull my documents out, go over to the chalkboard. I would type into, or I'd write with the chalk 2 or 3 different things, and then I had the documentation with me, and I would go over it. And as I'm going over this particular concept or proposal, Elmer Wheaton, or maybe it would be the chief guy running it, would say, once again, Bill, you are addressing, wait a minute, you are addressing this entire proposal is just as if you are from someplace else. Even your documentation, you write it as if you are from someplace else. You do that all the time. What's that all about? Okay, that would come up dozens of times.
So anyway, this is fascinating, Bill, because these people looked at you as being, obviously, respectfully, something different, something unusual. Your perspective, from wherever it was coming from, got their attention, and you had a different way of approaching problems.
Yes. Okay.
And that was observed. Yeah.
I had the same thing in the 3 times I worked for Lockheed. I had the same thing the one time that I worked for North American Aviation. I had the same thing for General Dynamics. Every place that I worked, I would go in because of some proposal that they wanted, and they wanted me to help them with that program. But I was always in a position to where I was giving a separate opinion, and the separate opinion frequently nullified their best concept. And yes, years later, after the Apollo program was over and my secretary left, she would drop stuff in my head, and I had the answer. Now, you say, I don't believe you either about that either, okay? But all I'm trying to say is I can't answer to you how or why so many of these things took place the way they did. But it seemed to work. And with me, I would be kicked around from one side of engineering to the other with people telling me, Bill, you can't do that. And I would then come up with an approach. Yes, it was different than the contract, okay? But I would come up with an approach that actually, with my trade-offs, I already did 2 trade-offs. I didn't even tell them about the trade-offs, but I did it, and I presented to them the best one. And we end up that did solve the problem, and it did it frequently. I made mistakes too. Everybody does. But the majority of what I came up with violated the contract and became a different way of accomplishing whatever they were trying to do. And I told you before that I also worked for the Navy inside of engineering over in Burbank at Lockheed. And Lockheed had this program to study the extraterrestrial vehicles in the ocean and in large lakes, and study the facilities that they had on the bottom, but the bottom was underground, the bottom. Okay? Very
now you've just opened another door here, and that's that we want to just confirm the fact that the oceans are absolutely no impediment to our visitors. It's just like another medium of atmosphere. They have underground facilities under the sea. They apparently have underground facilities all over the planet. We're being visited all the time, and they're very simple. They have cloaking so you don't see the devices, the ships, the craft. They're hardware. These are machines. Or you do, or they fly so fast that your eye doesn't acquire them. It's just too quick. That's another issue. And there are a lot of... Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, I forget what page it is in the book there, but I showed you in the book there is a photograph of a drilling machine, and it's an Air Force drilling machine.
Yeah, I know the one.
Okay, and there's a whole lot of guys standing around it and on it, and so you can see the size of it. I mean,
it's huge, and that's from the 1970s. That picture, I believe, and or early 80s. And you'd say, well, why does a tunnel boring machine say USAF on it and have a USAF stars and bars logo on it? What's that about? Well,
yeah, very interesting, of course. And so, first of all, why are you drilling the holes? Why are you doing this? And good gosh, don't have the Air Force do it. What do they have to do with this? It's not their responsibility. So, again, studies inside the secret think tank, back at Douglas, the location and size of large caverns was another standard program.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't mentioned in this document that we're referring to here because we were talking propulsion, but the Navy did most of the studies of not just the ocean facilities for extraterrestrial vehicles or facilities, but the underground facilities in the United States. Yet the Air Force is using their vehicle to drill the holes. The Navy used existing drilled holes that the extraterrestrials have built, and they're honeycombed all over the planet. And so many of Navy vehicles, small ones, have flown through those large ones, and at very high rate of speed. And, wow.
Bill, let me ask you another question, a little different direction. What do you know about what's going on, and there's apparently a lot going on, in Antarctica?